On live! Yay!
All right, welcome
Merrill
everybody.
Chandler here. Jennifer Hammond, we're here. We want to talk about real estate and funding specifically because right now in the headlines, all it is about this financial stress, and we're in this free falling financial economy, and the real estate market is very uncertain in most places. So let's talk about what is it that they need to know about their credit, but specifically their funding to be a savvy borrower getting a mortgage.
Absolutely. All right. So fundability is based on borrower behaviors. We've heard that if you've been following us for a minute, that's the drum we keep beating, right? Is fundability is based on behaviors. But one of the things that we haven't talked about is that there's a certain degree of credibility that you have as a borrower based on your borrower profile, the quality of your borrower profile. And that borrower profile comes in a couple of shades. One, is it linked to a true fundable identity, what we call your personal borrower identity, or PBID, right? Your personal borrower identity has to be set. And the fewer versions of your name, the fewer versions of your addresses you have, the fewer versions. Some people still have Homemaker and Taco Bell on their employment sections from when they were a kid, right? So we need to make sure that identity is dialed. Then that borrower profile, you can have high value credit cards and revolving accounts, or low value. Now, low value are mall store cards, retail cards, internet cards, an Amazon card, etc. Some of these, especially if there's not on the bottom right-hand corner, if it doesn't have a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover logo, it's a merchandise card, and those are the lowest possible value cards. So one of the things we need so we want high value, because when you're looking for a mortgage, which is what real estate funding is, this topic, when you're looking for mortgage, they're looking for what the industry calls national bank cards, national bank credit cards, because they have they basically report. You handling those means that you're being accountable to one of their sister banks somewhere in the market, right? The top 40 banks all intertwine with each other and know your application data. They know your revenue data, et cetera. And so all that's shared. So we want to make sure that we have the highest possible credit cards. But any credit card that is even a national bank credit card, and it has a less than $10,000 limit, it's not as hefty, reputable, right? Because if you're managing $1,000, then there's no real big risk to the bank. And so you paying every day on time is good. It's awesome. But there's not a lot of risk, right? And if you're going to get a mortgage, if you're going to get a condo or buy a home, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. They want to know that you know how to handle payments on the regular, right? And so you don't want $100,000 limits on your personal. You do on your business, but not on personal. So we want like that minimum threshold. So the first thing we want to say is seek to raise your credit limits on national bank cards up to $10,000. If you have 2 or 3 of them, fine. Do 2 or 3 of them, right? But the other thing we need to be on the lookout for that's going to help you establish a good banking relationship with the credit card companies, the banks, and therefore mortgage companies is making sure that you have those high limits and you keep them. Going into a stressed economy, banks only can lend a certain amount of money what they have in reserve, right? So if they have let's say if they have $1 billion in reserve, they can lend $10 billion out into the market. Problem is, if they're not making as many profits, not as much money goes into reserve, and so they have to contract. Let's say that billion goes to 500 million. Well, they're like, holy hell, what are we going to do with, we got to shave off dollars from our from our borrowers, from our card holders. And that's when you guys get a notice that there's a reduction in your credit limits. They're shaving those off. The other thing that happens is if you're, now who do they decide to you, who do they decide is going to take the hit? Well, if you have a $20,000 credit card and you're using $1,000 to $2,000 of it, even $5,000 of it, and you've been doing that for a while, they're going to go, these people don't use our credit card, so we're going to take their limit away and give it to somebody else who will use that limit because they make a lot of money from swipes. Those swipe fees, that 3 to 5% that is charged to merchants when you use a credit card, that most of that money goes into their pocket, you guys. So if you have a $20,000 limit, you're only charging up to $5,000. It could be even a little more, but they look and see, we're not getting a lot of swipes here. Drop that limit. Let's take that limit, since they can't just give whatever amounts of credit out in the marketplace. They transfer that limit over to a different card holder, give them 10. Let's say they lower your 20 to 10. They give that 10,000 to a new borrower who's, let's see how much they're going to use. So in order to protect your limits, which means protecting your fundability, which means getting better rates and terms on your mortgages because you're a bomb-ass borrower, you need to protect those higher limits. So what we've learned today is to create fundability and create a good reputation. When you go and raise your score, raise your fundability, you want to get your limits over 10,000, but then you want to use it and pay it off. Use it, but don't carry balances, but charge stuff up and pay it off. Charge it up and pay it off. That way they won't lower it. But be on the lookout. If you're not using limits in this environment, they're already starting to have your limits. Now, let's say you have a $20,000 limit. You've been carrying $8,000 on it, and they lower your limit to 10. Now you're at 80% utilization, which is going to pull the rug out from underneath you for mortgage applications they're like, why do you have 80% utilization? I don't. I had 40% utilization. And that's not going to prove up when they look at your credit profile, when they pull a credit report. So you guys, raise the limits above 10 for National Bank cards, nobody else, but use whatever limits you're going to use them and protect those limits, and don't let them drop those limits, especially if you've been carrying a balance. It'll gut you. And that makes it more and more difficult to get into a home. Wow, I just went on a spiel.
I was going to say, that was a lot of information. So I just want to, because I know we're short on time, let's go ahead and let's wrap it up. And remember, go to getfundablejennifer.com. If you want to have a full awareness and understanding of this, getfundablejennifer.com. And there's a whole course there that really goes into depth about this and helps
all of this stuff.
And it's more important than ever because of what's happening in the financial industry right now. And the banks, they are contracting, and you're going to start to see it more and more, especially as we go through this holiday season. So definitely, I wish you all the best. And Merrill, thank you. I look forward to next week.
It's always so much fun. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Oh no, next week is Thanksgiving, right?
Or
it's the day before Thanksgiving. I'm going to be on the road. I'm driving to Arizona with a carload. So for for 200-person family reunion.
Oh wow! Yay!
Yeah. So thank you. So it'll be the week following.
2 weeks. Yeah. So December, I think maybe that's the 30th. Anyway, 2 weeks from
2
today.
2 weeks, guys. All right. Be well.
Be well. Bye.